Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I want to start by thanking the university and the chancellor who is here with us, Nancy Cantor, for your unwavering commitment to justice and equality and for hosting us today. Thank you to Rutgers and also to organizations like Planned Parenthood, the New Jersey ACLU, Garden State Equality, and my colleagues who are on the stage with me from both the federal as well as our state government. Your leadership and advocacy has never been more important as we work to defend the reproductive rights of women and girls all across our nation. It's an honor to join you here at my alma mater of Rutgers University Law School, where I learned in law school that Roe versus Wade is the law of the land of the United States, and to reaffirm our support for reproductive choice and health. As many of you know, last January marked 49 years since Roe versus Wade was decided. 49 years since bodily autonomy and the fundamental right for women to make their own medical decisions became the law of the land. 49 years since abortion care was brought out of the shadows and into safe and legal clinics administered by professional healthcare providers like Planned Parenthood. 49 years. Think about it for a moment. For nearly half a century, Roe versus Wade has been decided, affirmed, and reaffirmed as a legal bedrock of constitutional right to privacy. In doing so, it has extended to generations of American women the fundamental right to choose. And as a result, when women in America face one of the hardest decisions of their lives, they have the peace of mind knowing that the decision is between them and their doctor and their faith, no one else. So let us be abundantly and unapologetically clear. Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. It is well established precedent. And if you're the Supreme Court of the United States, the institution entrusted by the Constitution to uphold the law and rights for every person in the nation, you cannot strike down 49 years of precedent on a whim. Supreme Court justices cannot draft a majority opinion, one that is filled with flawed justifications and racist and sexist assertions, and consider the matter settled. And they most certainly cannot strip the fundamental rights of half of the American population without a fight. And we are going to put up that fight. In 2006, when I was first appointed to the United States Senate, and I had to run later that year, one of the first votes that I was called to cast was on the question of a nominee to the Supreme Court of the United States. That was the nomination of now Justice Alito. He had a lot of support in New Jersey at that time. I had a lot of pressure on me to vote for Judge Alito. When we met in my office, I asked him to try to get his judicial philosophy. What is settled law? What is precedent? And he said to me, well, settled law is there's a case in controversy, it's been litigated, it's been decided, it's been affirmed, and maybe reaffirmed by the Supreme Court. I said, okay. So is Roe versus Wade settled law? And he looked at me and he said, oh, no. I said, no. I said, how is it that it's not settled law? And he said to me, well, it's still being litigated. I said, still being litigated because it's being litigated? You're saying it's not settled law? And he goes, well, there's a case in controversy. So I said to him, so if white supremacists now litigate Brown versus the Board of Education, are you telling me that would not be settled law? And he gave me the most incredible answer. So I knew then that if I was to uphold my sacred trust to the people of New Jersey, I could not support a nominee who would be willing to take us back to a time and place none of us want to be. So I voted no, and I'm glad 17 years later that I voted no at that time against Justice Alito. In that very first floor speech, I announced my opposition. I said, it's not where you come from that matters, but where you will take the nation. Does the Supreme Court with Justice Alito take the nation forward, or does it move our nation backward? Well, that judgment 17 years ago was right. It's now clear what that answer is. It takes us backward, attempting to erase a half-century of progress. Overturning Roe versus Wade takes us back to a place no one wants to go to, a dark place in history that would open the doors to overturning settled decisions, not beyond Wade. It jeopardizes fundamental rights like the right to gay marriage, to private consensual sex between adults, even contraception. It is an existential threat, not just to women, but to every American. After all, if precedent is no longer important, then nothing is sacred. Voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQI rights, and on and on. I, for one, refuse to accept this version of our country. I refuse to go back to the days when women, particularly low-income women and women of color, are subjected to government intrusion by male politicians who think they know it best. I refuse to go back to the days when abortion was illegal and therefore unregulated, when thousands of women a year were hospitalized and even died as a result of unsafe procedures. Because make no mistake, banning abortions does not stop abortions from happening. It just stops safe ones from being carried out. Ask anyone who remembers what it was like before Roe. Back then, a pregnancy might mean the risk of losing your job. It meant dreams deferred for young women across the country. When women's bodies are policed, abortions are carried out in back alleys, in hushed tones, and shame instead of safety. So let it ring out loud and clear. No vamos para atrás. We are not going back. We cannot and we will not. We are going to march forward and do what a determined group of wronged individuals always does. We are going to fight. We are going to reaffirm that abortion is an integral part of women's health care, that women deserve to know the full range of options when it comes to something as personal as the decision to start a family. We're going to call out the hypocrisy of Republicans who call themselves pro-life, but refuse to fund maternal care, child care, family leave, access to health care, education, and will never prioritize equal pay. I'm talking about Republicans who would force women to give birth even in the case of rape and incest, while opposing policies that benefit mothers. Republicans who, after waging a decades-long war on the rights of 169 million women in our country, are now more focused on a leak than on the consequences of their actions. My friends, this is the dog catching the bus. They are on the wrong side of a position that 70% of Americans support, and that is that Roe versus Wade should remain the law of the land. And so this week, when we return to the Senate, we will proudly vote for the Women's Health Protection Act to codify Roe versus Wade into law once and for all. We've done it here in New Jersey thanks to the leadership of Governor Murphy, but it's time to do it at the federal level. If the court does strike down Roe, if that's the final decision of the court, the Senate has to act and step into the breach. We will not go back to a patchwork of laws that leaves our people in other states behind. We will not stand by and let this country's healthcare system further be split between the wealthy and the working poor. Why? Because the freedom to make medical decisions with your healthcare provider belongs to all Americans. It's a right whether you live in Nebraska or in New Jersey. It's a right to privacy that is the sacred cornerstone for all Americans in different iterations, and we will not be silenced as some seek to strip it away. So today, let us say with one voice that reproductive rights are human rights, that an attack on the rights of women and girls is an attack on all of us. Let us keep faith of those who are with us today, who have been advocating for women and girls long before this draft opinion was made public. Let us stand in solidarity with the women of Mississippi, Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida who will bear the brunt of that decision if that's what's made. Let us stand in solidarity with the health care providers like the Jackson Women's Health Care as well. And let us never lose sight of our goal, which is the right to reproductive choice is an ingrained right on which everything else stands. I stand here as your senator, as someone who is tasked by all of you with protecting the constitutional right to privacy and a woman's right to choose. But on a personal level, I stand here as a father and a grandfather of 3 beautiful girls. I have 3 precious granddaughters who are at risk of growing up with fewer rights than my daughter Alicia had. You have my commitment for them, for your kids, for every woman in our state and in our nation. I will not yield, I will not stop, and I will not give in until the protections enshrined by Roe versus Wade are enshrined in the law of the United States of America. We are not going back. And in this fight, a member of the Judiciary Committee and eloquent spokesman on this issue, Senator Cory Booker.